Hi, welcome to SP2402. In this part of the module, I'm going to teach about robotics. My name is Liyanage. So in this lesson, as the title says, discovering science is very important. As you have seen in the recent days in 2020, we had to discover the science to make human enemies go away. So still we need to have a lot of discoveries. For example, there are things like vaccines came out after discovering science, but still to make it better we need to discover more. So basically the topic, it's quite a timely topic that we need to discover science to combat some of the enemies that we have. So my name is that's Liyanage. So I can be contacted at this email address liyanage.silva@upt.edu.bn. So normally I have this slide to introduce myself. I was born in Sri Lanka, and then I studied in Sri Lanka and Japan. I graduated at Tokyo University, and I worked at the US, Singapore, and then Massey University, Palmerston North, New Zealand, and then I came to Brunei in 2017. 2007. So about 13 to 14 years now. So yeah. So let's see the content. So basically, robots are not very often look as human characters. That can be something like the basic robots is at its most basic, robot is a machine that senses the world, processes the sense information with the computer, and then does something in response to that information, such as moving or turning. So it is actually the main part of a robot is to understand the environment and then do something in response to that understanding. Sometimes robot isn't just a computer. For example, now when I move the mouse, it can sense that you are typing. I'm moving the mouse, but it does not. It does not act act in the physical world. That means it doesn't have ability to sense something autonomously. So robot is an autonomous system. That means we don't have to tell him to sense the environment. The autonomous system that can sense the environment and respond accordingly. So there are a few cases in autonomous system. Many everyday objects around us can act like robots. For example, a car with cruise control senses how fast the car is moving and then changes the car's acceleration so that the car's speed stays constant. So that means when the car is moving, it can understand the speed and then can give a feedback to the car to speed up or decelerate depending on the current speed of the car. So that will maintain the car speed constant. So thermostat in a room, again, it's a sensor, senses the temperature of the room, and then it turns on a heater or air conditioner to bring the room to the right temperature. So again, it has an autonomous system to monitor, measure the temperature, and indicate to the machine to act accordingly. So sometimes the shape of a robot, as I told, it may not be a human-like, but many people assume that all robots are characters in science fiction movies like R2-D2 in Star Wars. R2-D2. In fact, robots are used all over the world right now. Robots build cars, clean houses, help soldiers and doctors, etc. They may not look like robots we see in the movies, but they are still doing important jobs. As I told earlier, just a temperature sensor is doing an important job, but it doesn't look like a robot. In this course, we look at some of these interesting applications. So getting back to this robot R2-D2. So it was like a robot in the movie when I was a child. I was enjoying this one. So it's those days, if that robot was there, now it should be much advanced robot. But the fact was that the movies exaggerate the robotics. They don't. They actually put things which are not existing. So when I was watching the movie, I thought it's a real robot, but it is not. In fact, inside that container there was a man. So basically, the essence here is that it's not the robotics in the films are not actually existing in the real life. Here it was the actor Kenny Baker sat on a little stool inside the robo and have his legs stick into R2's legs. So basically he moves his legs, the container moves. So the only inside Kenny Baker can only be inside R2 when R2 stands on just 2 feet, but sometimes it need to have third feet. The third feet is controlled by a remote controller, so because it's otherwise it falls down if in some rugged terrains. So that's that guy R2. So it was like this, the size of the container, and the person was short, so it's quite enough for him to go in. The other one was C3PO. When you looked at this C3PO walking on terrains like a human, you may be amazed. It was around 30-40 years ago, but even now recent robots cannot do these kind of things. But fact was, it was not a robot. It basically a human inside a container. So again, the movies show things which are not existing, but it is still fiction. So in this lesson we are going to look at some things like smart homes. Like, as I always like to emphasize, that robots is an autonomous system that can respond to the environment around it. So in perspective of your writing of answers, you should know that what is a robot? It is an autonomous system that can respond to the environment around it. And then when you compare it with a smart home, as it is an autonomous system that can respond to the people living in it. This is again another example that I take to explain to people, like we are living in houses which are not very smart, but we in a day we maybe about 75% of the time we are living in houses, but we use cars, we use school buildings. But if you look at a car, the car has many sensors to tell the condition of the car, which is, for example, the amount of petrol left in the car, the car's doors are closed or not. These things are indicated onto you very promptly, but it is not happening in houses. But comparatively, cars are cheaper than a house, but our houses are not smart enough to understand the environment and tell us what's happening. Because it may be very important that when we, for example, I'm also getting older, like if you are having an environment where older people are living, so there is, if you have a smarter home, that can actually help them enormously, because people living alone will need more care using sensors around them. For example, if you have an emergency, we can only use the phone, but if you are not able to use this phone, then there should be some other way that the home itself can communicate with the person and then communicate with the emergency services. So in other words, smart home is an autonomous system that is capable of communicating with the occupants of the home using multimodal sensors and actuators to help their well-being. So if this home was able to communicate in a situation where the occupant wants to communicate without using a hand phone, it may be quite important, even though it looked like a fiction. But one day our houses will become smarter than what we have now. So actually that's one of our very major research topic in our faculty, where we are looking at smart homes where we can make people's lives better. So smart homes can go into elder care, where when the elderly people are living in houses, we can have more sensors, and also hospital care. When the people are in hospital beds, we need more care there. So the issue with this hospital care, actually we did one research when I was at NUH Singapore with the NUH National Institute Hospital. The problem there was that if you have a patient in the bed, the nurses can take care of them as long as there is a indication that this patient needs some help. That means he can press a button. But if there are some patients that they have severe pains that even they cannot move their hands or arms, so they cannot press the button. So what we did was we installed a camera on the bed, and then that camera can capture the pain of the person's face, and then it can indicate the amount of pain to the nurses, where the nurses can come and attend to the patient. So emotions of the face can be an important factor. In that case, again, the issue here is not just the camera. Installing 1,000 cameras everywhere, it will not make it a robot, but this camera should have intelligence. So basically that's the intelligence is the thing that makes it smart. So even like the temperature control in the room, it can be much intelligent if it was recording the temperature setting every day for certain people. Like for example, if person X is using that room, he may be always setting the temperature 22. If another person is using that room, he may be setting it 23. So depending on the person character, if that system can remember the temperature, then automatically that can switch on to that particular temperature with some intelligence. So that means it keeps on recording the data, then it can use in the future cases. So in this similar case in the hospital care, the camera, because 100 cameras will not be watched by 2 or 3 nurses in the hospital, but when there is the indication that there is a person with pain, that indicates that will give opportunity for the nurses to come and attend to that person. Similarly, there are other cases like home security. We can have home security cameras, but if they are not intelligent enough to tell who the person was, if there is the intelligence, that the person face can be tracked, and the information will be extracted. So again, there are some cases we need to have information, intelligence in entertainment systems, home automation, and energy efficiency. There are some areas that we looked at in our faculty, but in particular this lesson, what we are trying to do is that we want to give you a certain indication how these robots can understand the environment, what are the sensors needed. So that's why in this lesson that's what I'm going to cover. So sensors in robotics. Before I go into that, I just play this 2 videos for you to just see the sensor. For example,
ドラムを担当しているリッチ。チューバの演奏はジャック。トランペットを吹いてくれるのは。
So you can see these are some robots, but they have certain kind of interaction with the environment, and also they need to know what they're doing. So basically there are sensors to monitor their movements, and as you can see that when they play the trumpet,
そしてこのバンドのリーダーハリーです。皆さんどうぞ大きな拍手をお願いいたします。
So it has to sense the environment, like how to blow into the trumpet and how to touch the keys of the trumpet, and then give a motion. So all these things are quite important in the robots. So the sensing how to turn the arms into a certain angle. So Also, you can see that when the robo is walking, it's not a simple thing to make, because the robo, we as humans, we have some kind of sensors on the skin. We know when our feet is on the ground, we get like kind of impulses on the brain that our feet is on the ground and next one can raise. But as a metal piece, there are no way that we know that this leg is on the ground, this leg is need to raise up. So this is where the sensors take part there. So the sensors will not will have to sense its touching motions, action, and then translate it into the other leg, and then the other leg can be raised. So that's okay. So I'll go to the next level. Sorry, next one is a bit complicated. The robo, it's again does something like a dancing. So it has to coordinate with each other. So there is a coordination again. They have to start as soon as so there is a motion here. So we need so it's just a indication that there are a lot of sensors underneath this kind of robos. So it has to take action when the arms are moving, and then they need to have a coordination between each robo. So just skip this one. The video I think I'll just play the video for a while and then go next slide. Okay, so yes, basically if you take a robotic system, the one that I explained just now are the sensors. So it's under the mechanical system. There are things called sensors. So the sensors are the things that will have to get information from the environment. Like there are things that you need to measure the strain or the pressure on the leg or the feet, and that can translate into a certain amount of motion. So actuators are the motion part, but basically in this lesson what we look at is mainly on sensors and some part of the digital conditioning and output system. But don't worry about this complicated diagram, but what we look at is here sensors. Under sensors we look at a few things in the next few slides. So when you look at a sensor, what is a sensor means actually, sensor is an element in a robotic system or measurement system that detects the magnitude of physical parameter and changes it into a signal that can be processed by the system. So it looks long, but just the essence of the thing is that sensor can convert a physical thing into a parameter that can be processed by a system. So it's a sometimes we call it transducer. That means sensors are referred to as transducers. It takes a certain parameter and translates it into a parameter that can be read by a computer or any processing system. It is, for example, when you measure temperature of a body using a sensor. So the temperature sensor will take the heat of your body and convert it to a number. So it's a transducer. So measuring or monitoring systems require sensors to measure physical quantities such as position, distance, force, strain, temperature, vibration, and acceleration. So these things, for example, when a robot is walking, the robot should walk into a wall. Maybe if he's walking to a wall, so it should stop, because there should be a distance from the wall to be measured. So for human, we know we can actually feel it, but for robots we need to have some kind of sensor that can tell the position of the robo as well as distance to the wall. Otherwise it will go and bang to the wall, and also force when it walks, amount of force that is placed on the floor. Like that, there are other things that we can measure using the sensors or transducers. So it has to convert the position into another number, another parameter that can be read by the computers. Similarly, distance, force, strain, temperature, vibration, and acceleration. So always there is some law or principle of physics or chemistry that relate the input and the output. So we are going to look at these things in the next lesson. As a recap of the lesson today, there are two main things that we define the robots. Robo is a system that can sense the environment and which act according to that environment. So to sense the environment, we need a sensor. Sensor is a device that actually can convert the physical quantity into a parameter that can be processed by a system or a computer. So please have a look at the lesson again, and if you have any questions, please get back to me. My email address is given in the beginning of the lesson. Thank you.